And here we are. Welcome to Critical Q&A for this week. Let's get the comments up on the screen, and let's get over to our chat box, and let's get the Q&A set up. So like we do each week, please put your questions in under this comment in the chat box here. All right, start Q&A without any delay here. Little casual today. I'm wearing my hat because you don't want to see I'm having a bad hair day. But I noticed, just before, let's go ahead and get right into it. You guys are not. Oh, I got a little thing here on my keyboard. Okay. All right. Now you have my attention. I'm so happy to be here with you guys today for Sunday, and let's get into it. Just seconds before I went live, it hit the apparently just 20 minutes ago or so, it hit the news that President Biden has stepped out of the race for re-election this year. And he has apparently endorsed Kamala Harris. I hope I never know how to pronounce her name. I'm so horrible with that. So let's go ahead and get this up on the screen. Biden just announced he's dropping out of the presidential race. Good or bad idea? Who would you like to see take his place? Okay, great. Let's do this. So I have to say, in all honesty, my immediate reaction to this is, a little bit of a sigh of relief, a little bit of a, good. Because if we're all being really honest, and I've been trying to be honest about all of this from the very beginning, and as you have seen, many people rant and rave, from George Clooney to Jon Stewart to other media pundits. There has been a lot of concern, anxiety, stress, worry around the subject of Joe Biden and his age and his demeanor and his ability to do the job based on that demeanor and words and the way he carries himself these days. He's pretty damn old. And let's be honest, he is too old for this job. So is Donald Trump, by the way. They both are, contemporaries, and both of them are way too old for anything. I think mandatory retirement should be kicking in at 75, personally, my own personal take. Make it arbitrary, make it across the boards, make it everybody uniformly, and that way there's no privilege or exceptions to that, right? 75, boom, you're done. It's a good age. It's a good age to retire. It's a good age to finish. Even if you're still one of those get up and go 75-year-olds, you've done your time. You're finished. You're over. It's, go enjoy your golden years out of public office. I just don't understand these politicians who die in office. And that is a problem. I don't believe that Biden has been mentally feeble for several years. I don't think that at all. In fact, somebody just posted a video just of him, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and a bit of a marked difference. Anyway, again, may you live in interesting times. Everybody's going to have an opinion about this. You asked me for mine, so I'm throwing it out there. I would very much like to see, the age level brought down in our Congress across the boards. I'd also like to see term limits, put into place there. I think it's ridiculous that we let people go there and have a career in Congress. But as far as the president goes, how do I put this? I'm not inexperienced. I'm not ignorant, but I'm not as familiar with the Democratic Party candidates or potential candidates as I probably could be. That being said, when I look out across the Democrats that I know about, my availability heuristic here is only, is pretty limited. In other words, I don't know, for example, if there are up and comings in the Democratic Party, in Montana or in Massachusetts or in, Boston or whatever. I only know what I know. I like our governor of Colorado, Jared Polis. I don't think he's got the name recognition to be electable in 4 months, but I do think he's somebody who should be moving on up the line. And my thoughts, we have Vice President Harris right now as a contender. Biden apparently is endorsing her. She's probably the one who makes the most sense in terms of immediate knowledge, experience, closeness to everybody who's there right now, the current administration. Probably would be the sensible choice to have as the candidate, but it's not my first choice. I would vote for Buttigieg personally. My thinking goes in his direction because of his political experience, military experience, education, manner, attitude, political views. I like that guy. And I like the fact that he's a well-rounded individual who sort of had the ideal life for public service, and seems to be utilizing seems to have been building a life around that. So I think he's currently our housing director or something, or HUD director. Anyway. Oh, that's an interesting question. Fabian throws into the regular chat here something about me not discussing the lower class and middle class or something when the worsening under Trump. I'm sorry. I guess I assume that was inherent in the conversation when I bring up authoritarianism and totalist systems of government. The lower classes and the economically disadvantaged are the first to fall under the heel. That's such a known, obvious thing. I guess I didn't feel like I needed to go there, but and I've mentioned before out loud a couple times now how the tax rates for the lower class and the economically disadvantaged in this country were purposefully made higher. The tax rates are higher for the lower classes under Donald Trump. He instituted policies through the Republican Congress instituted policies and tax code changes that, as I understand it, that made all of us at the lower ends pay more. And yeah, that's not good. I'm happy to mention that or talk about that. I didn't know I was leaving that out. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Tim Ryan from Ohio is the antidote to Vance. Good. I'd like to see a strong antidote to Vance because that man disturbs me. I don't like anything about him. Especially the two-facedness. I really, really hate that. He calls Trump Hitler, a year or two ago, and now he's his running mate. Like, how do you do that? I don't know how I've changed my mind about things. And I've been very open with you guys about the fact that I've changed my mind about things. I think that's a sign of good critical thinking. But to go from one extreme to another, and I think that's hypocrisy. I don't think that's progressive thinking. I'm blown away that Vance has support. Anyway, okay. So that is that question. Let's go. Joe DeCeppo threw a question into the chat here. Says, is it called the Shrine Auditorium because it's a shrine to LRH? Does Scientology own that venue? Oh yeah, let me make a quick note here. Edit. Pod. Okay. Sorry, I just needed to make a quick note to myself because I kept forgetting about this thing. The Shrine Auditorium is not owned by the Church of Scientology, and is named for, and I believe founded by, the Shriners Association or organization, and that's a fraternal kind of group. Shriners. Yeah, here it is. Shriners International. Here they go. Shriners International, formerly known as the Ancient Arabic Order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine. Is an American Masonic society. It's the Masons, they're back. Founded in 1872 in New York City. It's headquartered in Tampa, Florida, and has over 200 chapters across 9 countries, with a global membership of nearly 200,000 Shriners. The organization, it's known for its colorful Middle Eastern theme, elaborate participation in parades and festivals, and the Shriners Children's Network of nonprofit pediatric medical facilities. The Shriners is a global fraternity based on fun, fellowship, and the Masonic principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth. I'm reading straight off the Wikipedia page here. And yeah, in 1870, there were several thousand Freemasons in Manhattan. And, you know, they got together and with an Arab diplomat, they gave this party to this guy, musical comedy at the end. The guests became members of a secret society, took the notes and returned to New York, and away they went. And that's what it is. That's what it's about. There's about 340,000 members in the U.S. They have a number of hospitals around the world that they have given money to or sponsor or whatever. And looking if there's anything in here about the Shrine Auditorium. There are controversies. Draw criticism from animal welfare organizations for hosting circuses. Okay. All right. So that's what they are. And they're the ones who own or built or founded or somehow have something to do with the Shrine Auditorium. That's why it's called that. And that's why it's got the sort of architecture that it has and the symbolism and stuff that it has. And there you go. Let's back out here. Okay, good. Bunch of other questions just dumped into the chat here. Let's go over. I do have a couple presets for the week here. Okay, good. Boom. Boom. There we go. I like Bop It. This was an interesting question for me. Having a cursory understanding of Scientology's drills and objectives, don't they involve responding to repetitive alternating commands, often to do with carrying out actions in the physical universe, as in touch that wall, lift that tray, etc.? How is this different to Hasbro's Bop It games? And can you share a Scientologist's opinion on this game? How good is it as what it does, better or worse, similar or different from the normal processing of a person to be more aware and focused, as these games are very verified in their benefits? Oh, okay, cool. So I had to look this up. I've never heard of Hasbro's Bop It games before. So this is today was my first exposure to those. And what they are, if you haven't heard of these, it's a plastic device that kind of looks like it's got a sort of a center button thing, and it's got a couple branching arms coming off of this. It's about yay big. I'm making with my hands, about, maybe 2 feet across at most. It's got this the center round with a button on it. It says Bop It. These 2 arms that come off of it, and one is a round, and then off of that comes this round arm coming off this way, and another kind of round arm coming off the other way. And at the ends of these things are little things you can twist or pull or hit. And it's a toy game thing. And the idea is that this thing makes noise and plays music and tells you periodically while it's playing this music to twist or hit or bop or do any of like about 4 or 5 actions that you are being told to randomly execute. And children can sit with this thing and play with it for, you know, it's hours of family fun. I guess about 2 or 3 people, you know, you could get on this thing and compete or alternate or do whatever it is you want to do with this thing. It's not a memory game. It's not like Simple Simon where you know, the Simon game where you press the lighted buttons in order. It's not that. It's a simpler thing. And it's not at all like the objective processes or what is done in Scientology. So I wanted to definitely first off say this has nothing to do with what's going on in Scientology. And let me explain why. In objective processes, when you're being directed in auditing, first off, you're doing a formal auditing process. You're in a session where the session has been formally started and there have been what they call the rudiments, and they do this whole little setup with the e-meter where where the session has begun, and it's a formal process. You're not playing about when you're doing objectives. You're very much riveted. Your attention is very, very much only on this activity you're doing, and you've gone out of your way to pay a lot of money to have somebody administer these objective processes on you. The processes are run in a repetitive manner where the same command, not a series of 5 or 6 different commands, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 actions are being done over and over and over again. And this is it's the over and over and over again part that is sort of the secret sauce, or where the magic happens, so to speak, because you are induced, you're put into, through this repetitive hypnotic continuous action, your brain goes into this sort of stasis mode where you're just operating. And there's a thing when the same thing is happening to you repetitively over and over and over, your brain ceases to have anything to do because it knows exactly what's going to happen next. It's predicting exactly precisely what's happening next. There's no change. There's no novelty or newness in what you're doing in a series of actions, let's say, or no actions. You're just staring at a TV or something. You're staring at a wall. You're staring at another person, like with the TRs. When that happens, you get this thing called this Ganzfeld effect. Your vision gets all weird. You get these hallucinations. You enter into this trance state, and you are, what some people might describe as an altered state of consciousness or being. John and Atak and I kind of don't really put it that way. I think I used to describe it that way, but I kind of go with John now, and it's not an altered state. It's just a different state. But it's one where your awareness is sort of so concentratedly focused that you lose perspective, enter a hypnotic trance. And when your mind is in a state like that, apparently it just makes it a lot easier to order you about or command you to do things, and you're not even necessarily remembering or noting or being aware of the fact that those commands or suggestions or words or whatever are being given to you. And so that's what's happening in a Scientology session. You're not doing the process properly if you don't get into this weird state, this semi-conscious state, this sort of fluttered eyelids and weird hypnotic place. They keep doing the process on you until that happens. That's not at all what's happening when you're playing with the Bop It toy. You're very mindful with this toy, and you're only playing the game as long as it's fun and interesting for you. Processing in Scientology is not about keeping you mindful and in the moment. It's about driving you into this hypnotic trance. So it's the exact polar opposite of this Bop It game thing, and I think that's about as much as I wanted to say about that. But I hope that is makes that a little clearer or answers that for you. All right. Let's go back to the questions here. Oh, yeah. Oh, I hope we're not having conflict in the comments there. I'm only just catching up onto them. Okay, X-Cyan. I know a friend in Loveland that called me last night about a terrifying thunderstorm that had just happened with 60-mile-an-hour winds. How did Denver do? Yeah, we had a fairly light experience last night of the thunderstorms that happened. They were there. We were watching them out the window like, wow. You know, it was definitely epic thunderstorms like we tend to have here, but they were really far away up north. So I guess they were getting it in Loveland a lot harder. Fortunately, we had a little bit of period. We had maybe a half hour last night here in Denver where it felt a little electric in the air, you know, that feeling you get around a real severe thunderstorm. And it was kind of windy and it was rainy and it was a little intense for just a little period of time, and then it passed. So there you go. Okay, let's carry on here. Beyond Jehovah's Witnesses asks me, if Hillary, who is white, couldn't win the presidency, do you think Kamala can win the presidency? Oh, yeah. Hillary didn't lose the nomination because she was a white woman. She lost it because the party leadership made a decision based on polling and feedback and response groups and all the other crap they do. And maybe also people were, you know, leaning on or weighing, you know, the scales of power a little bit. But I remember even in the Sea Org, you know, hearing about this and at the time when it happened and being like, oh yeah, there's the, you know, not that the fix is in, but just, oh, okay, it was Hillary and Obama, and the party went with Obama, and that was how it was going to be, and Hillary was going to get it next time. Was kind of the way it filtered out of there. So yes, I do think that a woman has a perfectly legit shot at the presidency of the United States at this point. I know, and there are people who will absolutely swear on any stack of you know, feminist Bibles or whatever, that there is still rampant sexism out there, and I'm sure there is, and I'm sure people run into it every day. But structurally speaking, we have women in positions of power at every level of our society here now, and that sort of glass ceiling thing has been thoroughly broken as far as I'm concerned. My take is that that thing is shattered. If a woman wants to be president and is competent to do so, that, you know, she has a shot at it. You know, would Kamala be my first choice? As I said earlier, not necessarily, but if she ends up being the chosen one as far as the Democratic convention goes, then I will vote for her. I'm not so, you know, reserved about her or freaked out about her that I have, you know, like, oh, no, it can't be her. I don't have any reason to be particularly thinking that, but I do have, you know, reasons to have my reservations about her from her time as, I think, what was it, AG San Francisco or California, and, you know, and some of the stuff she said and did was not necessarily, you know, ideal as far as I'm concerned, but it wasn't so egregious that I feel, you know, morally corrupted or, you know, feel that I'm going to be some big moral hypocrite if I vote for her. I don't think that's the case. So that's my take on that. All right. Let's see here. Joe DeCeppo asked, do you think the USA will vote for a woman this time, unlike Hillary, or is there still too much sexism in the USA? Oh, this is funny. I'm just going down these. I'm not even looking at them before I click it. So yes, I do think that the USA will vote for a woman. I think that there are plenty of people out there who will not vote for her for sexist reasons. Yes, I do think there are people out there who are like that. but I don't think that that's a majority of people or even a swing vote thing. I don't think we're so stuck in the 1800s at this point in the US that that's going to be a deciding factor. Let me put it that way. That's my take. If polling or other information indicates otherwise, I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Cyan, what's your earliest memory this lifetime? Okay. I believe I can recall my first birthday. I've had images in my mind for as long as I can remember of laying in my crib and being woken up, or laying in a bed and being woken up with a birthday cake. And some women, nurses. I think I was at my mom's work or something. There were these women there, and having this birthday cake and being stood up and having this birthday cake. And I don't remember eating the birthday cake. I was 1 year old. I remember laying there. What I remember specifically is laying on my back, it being dark, there being noise, hearing this happy birthday to you. Like, I can remember those sounds, and thinking to myself at the time that I don't know what that means. I don't have memory of, oh, they're singing happy birthday to me. Just the noises and light coming in, and me thinking to myself, what's going on? What's that? What's that noise? And the only thing that I have for this in the real world is I have a photo of me standing in this crib or on this bed with this birthday cake. So I have a picture of this in our scrapbook, in our family scrapbook, and that's the earliest thing I can remember that I think is valid. I think that's true. So there you go. You asked, there's the answer. All right. Ooh, we get a lot of good questions here. So, Young Matador, hey, Chris, how hard could reg cycles go when you were in the Sea Org? For example, threats, bribery, brandy and cigars. Jeff Augustine has recorded lots of Caribbean rum being ordered to flag last month. Has recorded lots of, oh, okay. Well, I don't know about Caribbean rum, but all the above. I saw all the above. Let me put it this way. Sea Org registrars, salespeople, are some of the most motivated people on the planet when it comes to procuring money from people and selling them their eternity, selling them their golden ticket to, immortality. And Sea Org regs, Scientology registrars are pretty, sold on Scientology. They are not con men or women. They are people who believe in their product. Believe me, they fully believe in the product. And that's what makes them such intense salespeople, is they are personally so convinced of the necessity of Scientology auditing and training that they will do anything that they think they can get away with to sell it to you, no matter who you are. The attitude of a Scientology reg is you need this material. You need these services so bad, more bad than anything you've ever needed. If you who are watching this right now could imagine whatever it is in your life that is of monumental importance to you. If your friend were going to go off, if you had a drug addict friend and that friend, this was a drill we did one time, which is why it comes to mind for me right now. It was a recruitment drill, but the same attitude applies in Scientology to sales as it does to this. If you had a friend who was a drug addict and they were getting on a bus and they were going to go off, and you knew that if you let them get on that bus, they were going to die. They were going to go off on a drug bender or alcohol bender or whatever, and they were not going to come back. You weren't going to see them again. What would you say to them? What would your attitude be towards them? How would you convince them that they cannot get on that bus? Short of actually physically stopping them, because you can't do that. You can't just, physically impose your will on other people like that. They'll just, you won't have society's cooperation. People will tell you to knock that off around you, right? You're in a place, right? So how do you do this? How hard would you go? Bringing it back to your question here, young matador, right? How hard would you go in on that person to get them to not get on that bus? That is the ideal attitude for a Scientology salesperson. That same level of intensity that you would bring, or I'm assuming you would bring, to save your friend. And maybe it's not drugs. Maybe it's a bad relationship. Maybe it's a cult. Maybe it's, something, if you don't act in this moment right now, right? So that's how Regs are trained to be. So what's off the table when it comes to saving your life? Is anything off the table? Bribery, threats, I'm gonna, what's off the table? What are you not willing to do? That would be the answer to the question here, right? Is anything goes. And Regs in Scientology will very, very, very much go for the honey way before they're going for the stick, okay? Regs are not into battering or extorting or blackmailing the money out of people, because that's a one and done. You do that, you're not going to get the sale next week. You threaten a person, you make it rough, that's it. That's going to be it. It better be worth it, because this is probably going to be the last time you're ever going to get a sale out of them. So, if you go down that road, that's a one-time deal for the most part. So instead, you're going to butter them up. You're going to bring out, barrels of honey, and you're just going to glom it on. It's going to be love bombing central, and you're going to gift them. You're going to caper them, is what we used to call it, when you give them gifts or cards or ribbons, or you make some special little box with their name on it, or some bullshit thing to get them all buttered up so they will give you the money. That is very, very more often the route that Regs take with people. And that's what I can say about that. I just wanted to get that attitude across, because I think that hopefully answers the question in a more final way than just, do they give people cigars and brandy? Well, if that person loves cigars and brandy, then yeah, of course they will. If that person hates cigars and brandy, that's the last thing they're going to give them. So it depends on the person in front of them, and different people respond to different things. There are, as they say in Scientology, they have different sales types or different closing types, right? That you have the unattached female versus the pro buyer versus the family buyer versus a couple others that they have that I don't even remember anymore. So they'll tailor their sales pitch to the person that they are talking to, and there you go. Okay, Xion, are you planning to be part of starting a post-cult support group in Denver like Ken Garrett has done in Portland? I liked the show yesterday, by the way. Thank you, Xion. You are referring to the podcast, the Speaking of Cults podcast that I posted yesterday, which I did with Reverend Dr. Kenneth Garrett. Ken Garrett, a great, great man up in Portland. That was one of the favorite interviews I think I've ever done. It felt like speaking with Christian Zerko. It feels an awful lot like you're talking to Mr. Rogers when you're talking to these men, and that is not a disparagement or cut at any way. It's a uplifting statement. If you know how I feel about Fred Rogers, then you know that that's about the biggest compliment I can give to somebody. They are kind souls. They are men who exist to help others and take a great deal of satisfaction and life morale, you could say, from that. That is their purpose, and it very much is aligned with mine. And so I deify such people very easily. And Ken Garrett is a wonderful, wonderful man. So yes, we spoke in the podcast about my thoughts and feelings about potentially opening up or starting, rather, I should say, not opening up, but starting a post-cult support group here in Denver along the same lines and using the same format as the Safe Portland model that they use, that Ken Garrett has developed with Ashlyn Hilliard and others over there in Portland. So I think it's a very exportable, very easily duplicatable model that anybody can do. And the entire point of the podcast yesterday was not only to highlight Ken's own story as a cult survivor, but to highlight and talk about in detail this model. So I hope you guys will check it out. Anybody can do this anywhere. It is a brilliant, simple, easy to administer thing that could bring help to anybody. And I am very, very seriously thinking about doing that. It probably won't be till next year if I do. I talked about this project I'm working on right now. And I think you guys know I'm writing another book, and that's a pretty big deal. It takes a lot of my time, or it should be taking a lot of my time. And so I don't have time to be starting up support groups right now here in Denver on top of the other stuff I'm doing. But I do have plans and schemes in that direction in the future. Because as a non-trained professional, I'm not a trained professional licensed therapist, and I can't pretend to be. But I want to help people, and I want to help people as best I can. And I'm doing more and more support work and consultancy work with people these days. I am loving that work, and if you need any help with me along those lines, don't hesitate to contact me. But I do want to get out there and do some of that support group work also, and just see what it's like, see what the experience is, and help people, So that's in the works, but it's a future thing. Yeah. Okay. Okay, beyond Jehovah's Witnesses. Again, I'm just going down, boom, 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 as I'm getting them here. If Trump wins, when will the end of democracy end in the U.S.? I'm not, okay, I want to say a few things up here about this. I have emotions and emotional reactions just like everybody else does. And I have intense emotional reactions to authoritarianism. And I think the reasons why are obvious. I'm a cult survivor. I look at the world through a very interesting lens, a bit of a different one than I guess a lot of other people do. And I share that with you here. My lens is about help and about seeing things, red flags in the society that I live in that are not good. And I've brought those up to you guys over the last many weeks. We've talked about Project 2025 in some detail, and in recent Q&As, I've talked about extreme religious authoritarian desires and purposes that exist here in the United States among extremist groups. The Dominionists, the Seven Mountainists, the Christian Nationalists, the Gothardites, the homeschoolers, these hardcore evangelicals who want to reshape the very, not only political, but social fabric of the United States in their image. And they're very serious about that. I am very, very worried about those people as extremists, but I also need to temper that with the fact that those a minority group of people, that is not all Christians in this country, and I believe very, very strongly that the silent majority, as they are called here in this country, lean left and lean moderate and lean in the direction of social values and human rights for all. We see this in polling data again and again and again throughout the United States, that when you come out of the extreme, the zip codes that are owned by these, by these crazy people, these QAnon people, these Christian nationalists, these KKK members, these like really nutty enclaves of people, that's here and there and here and there, and there's a lot of them, but they're kind of disparate groups and not always united and that kind of thing. And I try to keep that in mind. I try to temper my fears, my terrors even sometimes, about what these people can get up to, because we can stop them. We can still stop them now. It's not the end. And I don't want to give in to the preached apathy, the sort of learned helplessness that is so insistent right now in our political divide, that you just give up, that it doesn't matter, that voting doesn't matter, that it's all gerrymandered and it's all fixed and it's all set up already and elections are fake anyway and all this bullshit. If any of that were true, then none of this, these millions and millions of dollars that are spent to convince you of this, none of that would be necessary if it were all really true. But there's a great deal of money spent to convince us to be apathetic and that our vote doesn't matter, our voice doesn't matter, and we don't matter. Foreign countries spend a surprising, a shocking amount of money on this, and so do people in the United States, certain elements here in the United States that want to, like I said, rewrite the fabric of our country. And I think this is all important to comment on in answer to your question, Beyond, because I don't think we're that close to the end of democracy here if we resolve to not let that be that way. I think we can push it back. I think we can push back this tide of authoritarianism and extremism that has overtaken the minds and hearts of souls of too many people in the U.S. I don't think they have the majority view. And democracy is about the majority. So if we still hold the majority, we don't need to be afraid of a minority of extreme nutcases. We need to do our job. Vote, raise our voices, make our positions be known, argue our cases, stand for what we stand for. That's what the whole point. Stand up. Be the value, the change you want to see, all that, right? These aren't just empty platitudes and words. They don't have to be. They can be thought-stopping cliches if you want them to be, but we can do still. And so even if Trump wins, I'm not giving up. And I don't want you to either. And I don't want to go, it's easy for me personally to go, it's all black, it's all horrible, and go down that path. It's easy for me to do that. But I don't think, as I sit here and right now talking to you today, I don't think that's the right path to go down. I think we need to steel our backbone and gird our loins and stand up straight and determine to and make a determination to fight this election season. That's my take on it. So I don't think we're going to see the end of democracy in the U.S. even if Trump wins. I think we're going to see an awful lot of people now and into the future resolve to fight that creeping fascism and push back against that authoritarianism and not let that overtake us, and if you're a supporter of that creeping fascism and you don't see it that way, you think we're the fascists over on the left or whatever, I really invite you to have more conversations with people on my side of the aisle, because it's only through conversation that you're going to realize that you're wrong. We're not a bunch of fascists on the left, and I know not everybody over on the right is either, but it's over there. If you look at the landscape right now, it's a little scary. So that's what I have to say about that. Okay, let's carry on here. I don't want to spend forever on these questions and lecture to you guys. I feel like I do that way too much. Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. Ex-Scion. Ever see something in the corner of your eye with a word that ends in ology and do a double take just to make sure it didn't say Scientology? Absolutely. As an ex-cult member, you do that all the time. Yeah, all the time. I was thinking of some examples of that. I was thinking of, for some reason, I don't know where I saw this, and this is an awful word, but for some reason, I thought of the word scatology as something I saw that confused me, and I cannot remember the context of it. I'm sorry. I was sitting here trying to remember the context. I thought it might be funny. I just can't remember it, but the word itself is all, scatology. Anyway, there you go. Joe DiCeppo, there has been talk in the UK of phasing out, quote, isolation rooms, end quote, for children in schools. They're usually used as a last resort before expulsion from school. Would you agree it's cruel like in prisons? Yes, I would agree that use of an isolation room for any longer than about 5 minutes is going to be not a good idea, right? I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I mean, but not. Seriously, not longer than that. I'm not even kidding. I think 15 minutes is too long, especially for children. You get the point. You get thrown into a place like that, limited time, kind of timeout kind of thing. I could agree with that, but I couldn't agree to anything more stringent than that. And I'd be completely okay with getting rid of them. I don't think isolation is the punishment people think it is. It's inducing damaging psychological states to put people in isolation for extended periods of time. It's really bad for people. If you're thinking it's going to make them less violent or less criminal, you're dead wrong. I'm sorry, but you're just wrong 100% of the time. Isolation is not a way to control or manage people. It's a way to make them crazy. I think it has about as much workability in terms of discipline as a public flogging. You're humiliating a person and hurting them and making them out in a public way to be, less of a human being than everybody else there. That's not going to get you the result you think it will get you. These are not, this punishment drive, domination drive kind of thinking. This is how we're going to control people so that they be good, that they're not, that we're going to control their behavior so they're going to be good little boys and girls. I'm sorry, but this isn't how you make little good boys and girls. It's how you tailor make bad people, is do this to them. So, yeah, so I would definitely disagree with that in every respect. Fabian Andiel, couldn't even Hulk Hogan at the RNC convince me. Chris Mania running wild. No, Hulk Hogan definitely did not convince me of anything. No, sorry, Fabian, didn't do it for me. In fact, I thought it was hilarious. There was a meme running around I saw in the last 24 hours about Hulk Hogan is not Hulk Hogan's name, right? That's not his real name. But funny how everybody chooses to identify him by his chosen name rather than the one he was given at birth, right? His identity is suddenly completely different from that given at birth, but it's okay that he be a speaker at the RNC. It's just not okay. Other people who have a different identity speak there. Like the hypocrisy, it just keeps happening. I thought that was hilarious. Okay, Paola Pecorini. Have you ever experienced auditing addiction in some people that you cannot do without, or on the contrary, auditing stress related that make you sick? Yes, I have seen both. That's a great question, Paula. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name here, but it's a great question. I have observed firsthand people who are addicted to auditing. And I'm not even exaggerating for effect here. I mean it. There was a woman, I've talked about this before. I'll give you this example again, that there was a woman in Santa Barbara when I was on staff there who came in and paid for auditing and wanted to go in session daily, and if she couldn't go in session daily because the auditor was scheduled with somebody else, she would come in and give statements to, like, written like she would come in with notes, lots and lots and lots of them, or she would go to another staff member in the church called the examiner, who is a person who will take a statement from you for your folder. If you want to communicate something to your auditor or to the case supervisor, you can go make a statement. Kind of like when you go to the police station and you make a statement. You can go to the org and you can make a statement, and they'll take it down and you'll hold the cans and at the examiner, and that's the person who will write down everything you say and turn it into the CS. So she would come in and do these statements every day. She wasn't going in for auditing, and these would be these sort of half complaining, half fawning sort of statements. You know, I love my auditor. I love the case supervisor. Everybody here is so wonderful. And my auditing's going so great. But today, you know, I woke up and I had this little, you know, I heard something on the radio and it made me sad. And I felt like I really needed to get in session, and I can't come in today to go in, and I can't go in session today. So I thought I should make sure the CS knows that, you know, I just had a little flutter today, but otherwise everything is great. And then the next day, if they can't get in the next day, right, then it's like, you know, because it's pre-scheduled, right? So maybe they're going to take 2 days off. Oh, you know, the next day it's a little bit worse, you know. Oh, I just don't feel so good today. I can't wait to get back in session because, you know, I had this argument with my husband, and, you know, and 20 minutes later, they're done giving their statement, and you're just like, oh my God. Like any little tiny thing that would happen in her life was like, let's run down to the org and tell them all about it so that we can take it up in my next auditing session. You know, like auditing is supposed to be keeping you in this happy, gleeful, wonderful place where your life is sort of like a Disney princess or something. You know, this is sort of like the idea. And this woman was just, if she wasn't getting her auditing fix, then something was just not quite right in her space, in her universe. And it was weird. It was a very, very weird thing. So... yeah. On the contrary, have I seen auditing stress that made somebody sick? I have seen auditing stress that has made people furious. I have seen stress related to auditing that has made people, how's the word? How do I put this? Like tragically sad. Like really down in the dumps. And I've seen auditing related stress that has put a person into a kind of agitated, nervous state of mind. Those are how I would describe some examples of people I've observed who were in, let's just say, negative headspaces as a result of their auditing, or worrying or stressing about their auditing, either getting enough or not getting enough. Yeah, that's what I can say about that. Okay. Benson Shelton, bark, bark. Yes, yes, that's right. Let's have a little Benson barking here. All right, let's move on. Fabian again, how would you feel about a party that is economically on the left, endorses welfare state, but it in all issues on the conservative? A left-wing superstar is setting this up in Germany. BSW for ref. Okay, how would you feel about parties economically on the left, endorses welfare, but in all issues on the conservative? I guess you mean like social issues, like they'd be anti-abortion or something? Or when you say issues on the conservative, you know, here in the United States, that means a theocracy. That means like tear down the separation of church and state. Is that really what you have over there with the BSW? Because I'm not sure if that's what would translate over here the way we're thinking about issues on the conservative side. But anyway, how would I feel about that? I'd probably be against that. Because, okay, I can see you're responding here. Societal issues. Yeah, like I guess you mean culture war stuff, like abortion, stuff like that. Because a lot of the culture war stuff is driven here in the left, or on the left-right battle or wars that we're having over here these days. Social or societal issues have to do with religious-based values versus progressive values. Abortion versus non-abortion, right? Abortion is murder, is the viewpoint on the right, and abortion is a woman's choice, and bodily autonomy is the view on the left. So if you say, okay, well, you know, you're going to have a social welfare-driven left-wing economy, but it wants abortion to not exist. Abortion's murder. And transgenderism, no, we're not going to have any of that. And, you know, sexual identity, no, we're not going to have any of that. And let's see, what else do we have on left-wing progressive tolerance issues? You know, like, well, no, we're not going to have any of that. We're not going to have interracial marriage. We're going to have Bibles in schools. That's the conservative thing, right? Let's get the Bible back in the school because morality is lost because moral relativism has taken over our society. So cancel moral relativism, cancel any postmodernism, cancel any education in that direction, right? Let's get rid of all that. That's what the right wants over here in the U.S. So if that's what, you know, you're proposing, Fabian, then I'd have to disagree because you know, social culture values are important to me because they're the thing that makes life worth living. And I don't want to live in a state where, you know, religion is mandated. There's a state religion, right? I don't want to live in a state where, you know, where progressive identity issues about, you know, the freedom to choose your life and your sexual partners and be able to adopt children and be able to live a normal life and get married and things like pay taxes as a result of getting married. All the fun and games that we get as our, you know, on the cis side of things. Well, all the LGBT get that too. You know, if you're on the right, they don't want any of that. So I you know, no, I can't agree to that. Okay. Xian, did you see the movie Cowboys and Aliens? Did you at least like the concept? Yeah, I guess the question sort of assumes I didn't like the movie, and you're right. I didn't particularly like it. I didn't hate it. It was fun. It was Jon Favreau having fun. And I definitely am always down for watching Harrison Ford and, you know, I'm trying to remember the name of the actor. How am I forgetting? I'm a horrible, horrible, horrible person for forgetting the name. Daniel Craig. Jesus. Come on, Chris. I love Daniel Craig. I love watching him. So I did enjoy the concept, and I enjoyed the cowboy popcorn style movie making of it. You know, so that's how I felt about it. But it's not something I've got on disc or something. I'm not, you know, it's not a movie I'm going to return to. Let's put it that way. Huh. Anthony Spurgeon asks me, which cult, in your opinion, was the most pathetic, as in their impact and influence? Wow, here we are an hour in already. There's something right on the edge of my thinking right now, so I'm thinking about this. I'm trying to remember. Sorry, I'm just going to have to think about this one for a second. It's right, it's one of those like, it's right on the tip of my memory. It's right there on the edge. There was, oh yeah, there was this celebrity cult thing going on for a little while around, it had to do with rocks. It had to do with either focusing or channeling or putting, some kind of spiritual power or getting some kind of spiritual power out of these rocks. These specially crafted or artfully created or something rocks. And the cult had to do with making these things or having these things. It's like I said, I have this picture. I remember the media picture, and there was this rock thingy or this crystal thingy. And I think one of the Kardashians' name was attached to this somehow. There were a couple of lower level celebrities who were attached to this. They were one or two of them were in this photograph. And it was like this kind of wannabe new age culty movement around selling these rocks or this jewelry rocky thing, and how it was supposed to focus, and it was short-lived. I mean, it might still be around. I think I reported on this last year on my news show when I was doing that news show. And it was like, it struck me while I was reporting on it, researching it, how pathetic it was. It was so sad, it was so obvious and so pathetic and so tiny. And you could see it was going to be one of these fly-by-night operations that probably doesn't even exist now. I mean, this was like last year. One of those kind of just, it comes and goes, but it really is a little culty. It's not just faddish. There's something a little off about this. That's what comes to my mind. I don't remember the name of it, but that's the best I can give you of it, the description there. It was the description? It had a weird name, I think. I think it had crystal thing. I think it was a crystal thing. That's what I got. Menudo, maybe? Not the Moonies, not the Breatharians, not Menudo. Anyway, that's what I've got for you. I wish I could remember the name. I am so sorry I can't remember it, but it was really pathetic. That's what stuck out to me, and that's what I was trying to get my wits around, was the name of that thing, but I can't remember it. All right, the unpronounceable Russian Cyrillic name here, Abna. I don't even know. Anyway, have you tried EMDR and does it work? I am not someone who endorses EMDR. I'm not going to poo-poo it if you're getting it and you're getting results with it. I'm not going to tell you that you're not getting results. But looking into the backstory and origin story of EMDR, I was not impressed. The woman who came up with it basically had an epiphany on a beach or something. And the story of this is a little suspicious, to say the least, in a similar way to, the backstory or origin story of chiropractic. It's just goofy. There's not real science there. It only pretends to be. And there's science that's been done on EMDR since that time. But I'm saying the origin story of it is not an evidence-based origin story. And that bothers me. Not that people can't have epiphanies and realize things and workable things, and maybe it's going to help other people kind of things. Maybe, right? Studies seem to indicate that EMDR may have a higher than placebo rate of success and that kind of thing. So again, I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody, but if you ask me the question, I'm going to say, no, I haven't tried it, don't want it. It strikes me too much as similar to Dianetics in some ways. I am not at all sold on the tapping thing. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, it works. Great. Why? We don't know. Okay. I'd like to know a little bit more about that before I'm going to be, I want it to make more sense to me, is basically what I'm saying with EMDR. So, So that's what I can say about it, right? But you will find people who will absolutely tell you they have had positive results from EMDR sessions. Again, I'm not taking away from that. You have other people who will tell you, I tried it, didn't work for me, or didn't do anything for me, or triggered me in some fashion. You will find people who will say that. I've run into them, and, that's what I got for you on that. Maria asks, isn't it trained submission? I'm not sure what you're referring to when you ask me that. Could be referring to a couple things we've talked about today, Maria. So if you could clarify. I'm not sure if you're referring to EMDR or if you're referring to something else. Okay, coming back to that same questioner, how do you maintain objectivity and critical thinking when dealing with emotionally charged topics or personal experiences? Okay, my best answer, my very, very best answer to this question is time, emotional regulation, and research. Combination of those three things. By time, I mean that you need to give yourself time. When you're dealing with an emotionally charged topic or a triggering topic or something that you know you're not on an even keel on, then you can't trust your instincts or your immediate thinking, which is basically the same thing, or your emotional volatility connected with that topic. In other words, your emotions are going to affect your thoughts. Your rational thinking will be filtered through or tempered by these emotions, whether it's a happy or sad or angry feeling. Those feelings change our thinking. We all know this. We've all lived this, right? So emotions, the one thing that you can say with certainty about emotions is that they change rapidly. And because of that, your thinking on a topic can change because of the way the effects the emotions are having on it. So if you can't trust your thinking because of that, then give yourself time to let the emotions change and process and run through. So today, maybe you feel happy about it or sad about it or angry about it. Tomorrow you wake up, well, I don't know, maybe you still feel angry about it. Give yourself another day. Seriously, give yourself time. Or maybe you still feel sad about it, or you feel a little different about it. You go from sad to angry. Good. Give yourself some more time until you can feel like at least a pretense or an apparency of objectivity, of an even-handedness, of rationality. If you can force yourself or get yourself or manipulate yourself into that place of objectivity by deep breathing exercises, coping actions, taking a walk, removing yourself from the space for a little while, anything you can do to bring the volume down is going to be helpful to you in this, in becoming more objective or thinking more critically, more skeptically about it. Research is also another way to flip the script on your brain if it's all charged up or pissed off or emotional. By doing some learning or some education, you can kind of force other areas of your brain to turn on or get busy, and the emotional areas kind of, what's the word? Calm down, basically, right? The volume comes down a bit. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Many of us cult survivors wish we had found properly trained trauma therapists soon after leaving, No Name in NW says. Absolutely. Very, very true. So, Okay, so anyway, that's the only thing you can do is give yourself time, give yourself some learning, learn more about the thing you're freaking out about. Maybe you're freaking out or having problems or issues with it because you don't know as much about it as you should or could. Yeah. And then the last thing I can say about it, of course, is recognizing that you're never going to be objective about a thing. There's no such thing as a human being who's objective about anything. Our views are tempered by the fact of our existence, if nothing, if no other filters exist or biases exist, but they do. And there's lots and lots of them that exist because of who we are, because we exist, because we're living organisms, because we have a short time span, because we have an education, because we speak a language, because we have a skin color or gender identity, because we have a cultural identity. All of the things I'm listening to you right now are biases. They filter how we think about the world because of all the things I just said that you can't do anything about and you will never be able to change. So also recognize that you don't have a state called objectivity, but you do your best. And you know for you in your life when you've made good decisions and when you've made poor ones. And you know that emotions are the number one reason why you've made bad decisions in the past, if you're really, kind of being honest with yourself. The other reason you make bad decisions in the past is because of bum data. You didn't know or what you could have known or should have known. We'll find out, right? That's the other lesson to learn. And or you acted impulsively or rashly. You didn't give yourself time. So that's why I come up with those things you can do something about. Okay. Great, lots of questions. Also asking here, can you provide some tips on how to have a productive conversation with someone who holds a belief that you think is irrational or unsupported by evidence? Yes, I can. I wish I was better at this myself in the real life living of the world. I'm just as emotional as everybody else from time to time, but what I can say here is this. When I do it right, this is what I do. And I do it right, I think, more often than I do it wrong. I always go immediately to, like all of us do, right? Negativity bias. Okay. The best possible advice I have for conversing rationally is to knowingly engage in street epistemology. Instead of being all worked up about trying to present your point of view or your facts or your position, get real super curious about the other person's. I really want to practice and do this more myself, but when I've done this, it has always been the right move. Street epistemology is about inquiring about other people's beliefs and ideas, possibly with an eye toward changing them. But that's not the point of street epistemology as such. It's to inquire about a person's beliefs or ideas, ask them how certain they are, why they feel that way about them, explain them to me. Let's break it down. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about corollaries and consequences of those beliefs or ideas. Let's really converse, but let's do so with the temperature brought down, and let's just have rational discourse. I'm not going to sit here and try to argue you out of your beliefs. That's not what street epistemology is. So we can have a safe discussion about it where your defenses can come down a little bit and so can mine. And that is the best approach I know of to use when trying to do what you're suggesting here. Have a productive conversation, especially with beliefs that you don't agree with, is get more curious about those beliefs that you don't agree with. It'll surprise you. It'll surprise you in a couple different ways. It'll surprise you if you get the person talking to you about this. It'll surprise you why they think what they think. It'll surprise you what they think. You might find out you're actually wrong about some important aspect or foundational pillar underneath the belief. Maybe they believe in, they're a Trumpster or something, or they believe in, Santa Claus or something. And you go, okay, why? well, because blah, 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 whatever that blah, blah, blah is. I'm just trying to say that it can surprise you. It's not what you think it is. You think it's racism, or you think it's sexism, or you think it's misogyny, or you think it's this or this, and it's not that at all. It's something completely different. That's really interesting. Yeah. Anyway, you'll learn things. You'll learn new stuff, and I don't know a better way to tackle that. And also. Being honest. Sometimes for the sake of sociality, we get a little passive. No, I'm not trying to change your mind, when that is exactly what we're trying to do. No, I don't really disagree with you about that, when we really do disagree, right? Like sometimes for the sake of civility, or of not rocking the boat, or not wanting to make them mad or make them upset, or, for fear of creating some bad effect in the other person, right? We will curve where we're coming from. Probably not a good idea. If you want honesty out of the person you're talking to, you got to be honest yourself. And that doesn't mean being brutally honest, because usually being brutally honest is really just telling yourself you're being honest for the sake of being brutal, and there's no reason to be brutal when you're talking about, things that if there's ever a time to not be brutal and not be in their face and not be antagonistic to somebody, it's when you're dealing with someone who you think is being irrational, or is offering opinions or ideas to you that you really don't agree with and you don't think are supported by evidence. If that's where you're coming from, it is most effective to not be upset about the fact that they think those things. As hard as that might be, as impossible as that might be in certain circumstances, the advice is still true. Don't be upset. Don't be emotionally invested in in your feelings about, or your evaluations about how they should be thinking or what they should be thinking, because they're not you. And it's so easy to forget that. And it can feel a little bit. Here's another really important one. And this is really important because it's not obvious and people don't talk about this one very often. It can feel like when you're dealing with somebody who you think of as irrational or they're off the rails, it can feel upsetting because it can feel like they're so in another reality or dimension that they're not really hearing what you're saying. And you can feel disrespected. You can feel like you're not granting me any importance, or you're not giving my views or ideas any importance or value, so why should I give yours, right? Well, fair enough, except in the question you're asking me here, you're initiating conversation with the irrational person. You believe them to be irrational. So if you're going to do that, then own it. And part of owning it is not making assumptions about, because the other person thinks X, Y, and Z, therefore they don't respect me, they don't appreciate me, they're not listening to me, they don't like me. Like, we can take it real personally, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And you got to put barriers or shields or something up there so that you don't let that happen. Because as far as my own experience goes, that's the fastest way for the thing to fall apart or deteriorate. And when I have lost it, it's for failure of doing that I have lost it. So that's why I suggest those things. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, let's carry on. Fabian, Yes. Did you ever look into Milton Erickson? His views of the unconscious are quite the antithesis to Freud, and therefore LRH, as a source for change, power, growth, and healing. I have not yet looked into Milton Erickson. He is on my list. I have it bookmarked. I started diving down the neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, rabbit hole recently. I've been watching some Steve Hassan videos and some other things on NLP, and Erickson is right adjacent to that. He's right next in line, right? So I want to satisfy myself on the NLP stuff, and I got a lot more to learn and read about and study on that. And then I want to full on tackle Erickson and Ericksonian hypnotism and all that kind of stuff. I have lots and lots of questions. So I'm trying to get all my questions answered about all that stuff. And that's why you've seen me talking more and a little bit more openly about hypnotism and stuff, because I have been learning some stuff about that as a result of diving into the NLP rabbit hole. So that's what I can say about that right now. I'm curious what you know about this here in terms of his views on the unconscious and stuff. I'll be curious to read about that when I get to it. Fabian Andiel, are there any isolationist Democrats like Ramaswamy and the GOP who are against the U.S. interfering all over the world? Such a funny question, Fabian. I don't mean to. It's such a generalized question that I'm going to have a hard time answering it, and I'll tell you why. The framing of what the United States of America gets up to in the world is an interesting thing. There's the reality of what people do. There are the ideas people have about why they do what they do. And there are the consequences of what they do. And all three of those things are up for grabs when it comes to people's opinions and ideas about things like the United States. You know, we have a long history. We have hundreds of years history of one continuous form of government. We haven't changed, switched, revised. You know, there's no US 2.0 yet. We have maintained our same system of government this whole time. And our foreign relations policies, our foreign affairs policies have been up, down, sideways, you know, depending on the various administrations over the centuries. We have tried initially to have a hands-off approach. You know, that can be looked at negatively based on the consequences. Again, based on the viewpoint of, you know, what consequences are you looking at, that kind of thing. Then we have an attitude or reputation of over-involvement and poking our nose in places where it shouldn't be. And there seems to be a very simple Simon approach to that viewpoint that I push back against, because I was not involved in any of the decision-making processes of any of what I'm talking about right now. So I probably shouldn't say we, but I use the word we as the collective Americans or the United States, or, you know, our government and the choices it's made over the decades. We have chosen to both help and hurt different parts of the world based on current interests and requests and demands and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And any one of those decisions throughout the years, whether it was, you know, a war or a skirmish or an aggression, or whether it was our colonialism, or whether it was our incursions into other countries, whether asked to be there or not, or whether it was our wars, or whether it was our funding of countries that are at war, you know, so we're helping them or arming them or assisting them or funding terrorism, right? It's all a matter of viewpoints, all a matter of how you want to look at it and what position you hold as to whether we're the good guys or the bad guys in any of these circumstances, whether it's Israel, whether it's Colombia, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Honduras, Central America and our various adventures there, whether it's the Middle East, Afghanistan, Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way down the line, right? NATO, Europe, our relationship with the United Kingdom, our relationship with Japan, our ups and downs relationships with China, right? So here we are interfering all over the world, you say. What are you talking about, man? What do you mean? I don't really know what you mean when you say that to me, because do you refer to our military in Africa building houses for people or irrigation? Is that interfering all over the world? Is providing foreign aid to disaster zones, is that interfering all over the world? Or do you think, our allyship with Israel is interfering all over the world? Is us being a key provider of NATO funds, is that interfering all over the world? Is us supporting Ukraine against Russian incursion and aggression? Is that, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. And I'm not trying to be snarky or snide right now. I'm really not. I answer your questions and I'm very interested in them. But I would appreciate questions that are a little bit more exact when it comes to stuff like this, because I don't know what you mean. The United States of America provides more support and assistance and aid to more countries on this planet than any other country that exists or ever has existed. I can say that with absolute certainty. So we police international traffic ways so other countries don't have to, and piracy isn't a thing, right? And when we take our finger off the pulse of that, crazy things happen and they want us back. So that happens. Is that interfering all over the world? I don't know what you mean, So that's where I'm kind of coming from in answering that. Is I'll answer your questions, but I don't know of any isolationist Democrats. Let me answer that part of the question too, of course. I'm not aware of any isolationist Democrats. I don't know Democrats who want us to pull our flippers in. And given everything I just said, do you want us pulling all those flippers in? Are we supposed to just not help anybody anymore? Because we provide billions of dollars of taxpayer aid all over the world every year. So I don't know. I don't know what to think there. All right, let's carry on here. Okay. Wow, it's got it back and forth with you guys. It's awesome. Chris, do you think mainstream religions share characteristics with cults? Where do you draw the line between high control religious groups and socially accepted religions? I love your questions. These are great questions. I just wish I could pronounce your name. If you could tell me, that'd be great. Okay. I'm going to answer you by speaking more broadly, and you'll get the answer from that. Every single group of human beings that gets together has certain characteristics. I'm not a soc guy. I'm not a sociology major. But these are my observations. Every group, to be a group, to unite around a common purpose or meaning or identity, has to have certain characteristics. There has to be group unity. There has to be a group dogma or identity or agenda of some kind. There have to be rules and guidelines, even if it's just show up at X time so that we can meet. Or, we're the group that never meets. Well, then you're not a group, right? Like, you've got to have some connection of some kind. It doesn't have to be in real life, but it has to be something. These days, it could be a digital group, but it still has to have a common ground, a common point of reference, and a common understood by the group members. There has to be a common goal or purpose or identity of some kind. Okay, we got all that. David Miscavige. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Excellent. Now I know we'll call you David Miscavige. Nice to meet you. Because groups share these characteristics, these common things that make them groups, there are certain behaviors that are evident in every group. We all have a name or a unifying tag or something that separates us from everybody else. We do or think or eat or somehow activate, we do something together that makes our group this group. We either identify a certain way, or we say a certain word to each other, or we, or whatever it is we're doing as a group together, we're doing it. Because we're doing it, other people aren't. So there's this automatic reality of us and them. It exists immediately when you have a group and a group identity. There are rules. There must be a mechanism for enforcement of the rules. Somebody's got to take some charge of that. If somebody offends, are there consequences? If you speak out of turn, if you show up not wearing the company shirt, if right? If this, then this. Those if-then conditionals have to exist in some form around the group identity or purpose or activity. Okay, so, walking through all these simple, basic skeletal things, I think you see right away that where I'm going with this is that all groups share activities and characteristics, and you can put any of these characteristics into a spectrum, right? How is the group identity manifested? Is it we all just sort of know each other, that we're all part of this group? Or does everybody have to get the same haircut? Or do they have to wear a hat? Or do they have a uniform? Or is there a secret handshake they have to tell each other or show each other? What identifies the group? Well, if it can be something very tiny or no big deal, or it could be a full-blown, you have to show up at our meetings with a hazmat suit on. And you can't come if you're not wearing a hazmat suit. That would be a little bit more extreme of a demand, right? So you can see that there's a spectrum of demand with something as simple as how do we characterize or show ourselves. And this exists across all the metrics, all the different ways that the group has a group identity or the group exists. You have this spectrum of how much of it does it exist? How much uniform is there? How much identity is there? How much us versus them is there? Okay, so I think we all get the point right away that every group has characteristics that can be dialed up and made more extreme. And if you do that with any group at all, anywhere, you can make a cult. You dial up the demands, you dial up the membership requirements, you dial up the activities of the group, you dial up and most important, you dial up the importance of the group, the priority of it to the lives of its members. The more dedicated and focused and intense that membership is, the more cult-like it becomes. And the line in the sand that gets crossed between a non-cult versus a cult is when the behavior becomes abusive, becomes codependent and abusive. And those two things are what make it an abusive or destructive group, is you cross the line, right? You have very dedicated Catholics. You have very dedicated Swifties, Taylor Swift followers. But are they destructive? Are they hurting themselves? Are they hurting other people through their actions? Not are they making other people angry? Not are they causing disagreement? Not are people upset with them? Are people offended by them? None of that makes it a cult. It doesn't matter whether people are offended by you or disagree with you. That has nothing to do with a cult status. Is there a psychological codependency being created in the members and the follower and the leadership? And are they going over the line? Are they dialing it up too far so it becomes too obsessive, compulsive, harmful, physically harmful, psychologically harmful? That's where you have crossed the line. So that's the full and honest answer to your question, Miskovich, and I hope that that helps. Okay. Carry on here. Fabian, you guys got some great questions, by the way. I really do love your questions. I hope you guys know that. I just don't want the generalized ones. Okay. Fabian, who have you been in your last lifetimes? Did you ever have the situation that multiple publics claim to be the same person in a past lifetime? Multiple Marilyn Monroes, for instance. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I've told some stories before. Let me tell you this one again, because it's actually fucking hilarious. At least it was to me, even at the time. And we were in the Sea Org when we were talking about this. One of the reasons that L. Ron Hubbard wrote right in his bulletins, don't talk about your past lives, right? Don't talk about it, your case with other people, is because of this exact phenomena. How many Julius Caesars have there been? How many Jesus Christs have there been? A lot. And to the point of ridiculousness, even, probably, right? If you were to actually plow through all the PC folders of all the Scientologists, which would take you a lifetime, but if you were to do it, how many Jesus Christ would you find? A lot, right? So don't talk about it. Don't confuse each other with this. You know, just because you remember it doesn't necessarily mean it was exactly that way, is sort of the subtext to Hubbard's writings about this. You know, at the end of the day, Hubbard didn't say, just because you remember something in session, it's real. And he'd be the first person to tell you that, by the way. And I don't say this as an apologetics for Scientology. You guys know I hate that shit. But he didn't really say that just because it comes up in a session means it's absolutely true. What he actually said is, if it provides relief to a person and if it works because they feel better after the auditing's done, that's all you're looking for. It's an effect-driven thing, not a truth-driven thing. It really, and Hubbard was pretty much that blatant about it. So. Probably would reach Pluto, actually, Stuart. Okay, so so you don't want to be talking about it and doing all that crap. I was never anybody famous in the past life. I never claimed to be anybody famous. I never had any memories of anything like that. I was always Joe Schmo, you know, Joe Janitor, Joe Soldier, Joe, you know, Cop or whatever. That was, I didn't have a whole lot of commonality of themes or recurring identities in my own past life memories. I was kind of all over the map. But the story I wanted to tell you guys is at the Advanced Org in Los Angeles, when I worked there, there was the bookstore officer was a pretty savvy guy. I don't see any reason not to tell you. He was Dylan Code. He was the bookstore officer. He was Keith Code's kid. Keith Code is a very famous motorcyclist and Scientologist, and his son Dylan joined the Sea Org. I think he's out now. I think he left, but. God, he was funny. He was so no nonsense, and but he could just be hilarious, and he really understood the finance system really well. He could make that thing do anything. But one day he was laughing because a woman named Janice, not Janice Grady, a different Janice, worked upstairs. And she had been on the ship with Hubbard and the family and had been, I think it was Quentin's girlfriend. And so people who would come into, who were Scientologists, who would come in and talk about having known Quentin in a past life because they were claiming to be past life Scientologists and they knew Quentin. Dylan was just having a field day laughing about this because he was like, oh yeah, so come on up with me and let me introduce you to Janice. Does she look familiar to you at all? Because of course nobody would know that Janice was his girlfriend unless you really knew the story, right? So these people who were remembering that they were either Quentin or that they knew Quentin, but the thing was that there were people who were saying that they were Quentin. And because Quentin had died, right, back in the 70s. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. I hope I'm not getting the names wrong. I do sometimes mess up Hubbard's kids. Yeah, it was Quentin who committed suicide. That's right. So, yeah. So that was, anyway, that would come up. And I thought it was funny that it would come up in the Sea Org. Like there was a guy who was just openly critical of past life memories of people, but you could be critical of stuff like that. You know, it was a big joke because he said there were something like 5 or 6 Quentin Hubbards running around, you know, amongst the public of AOLA because they wanted to be a Hubbard. I don't know. You know, that kind of thing never would have had any appeal to me, but yeah. All right, let's carry on here. Oh my God, it's 2:41. Jesus. How do you guys do this to me? How does time just like speed up in a way I don't understand it? Whenever I'm live, it's like somebody speeds up the clock. I swear, it has felt like I've been sitting here for maybe half an hour. Well, let's see if we can go into speed mode here and wrap up some of these last questions here before I have to go. Okay, guys, you guys have been awesome. Let me just check in here and see how we're doing. Yeah, we're doing awesome. Okay, you guys are the best. All right, let's get back to it here. Bop. Okay. Beyond Jehovah's Witness asks, if Trump wins, is there less of a chance that Scientology will have their tax exemption removed? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If Trump wins, you're going to see more of this Project 2025 agenda. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be internment camps on day 3. But you are going to see people who are very, very serious about tearing down the walls between church and state. I'm not kidding about that. I know. I really hope I don't sound like some, conspiracy theory nut talking about this stuff. I really, really hope I don't, because I'm not, and I'm not talking conspiracy theory, right? These are real people who are really serious about this, and they are part of Trump's world and Trump's administration. So if Trump gets in, you're going to see more empowerment of church activities, and you're going to see more privileges and more tax exemption and more benefits going to religious causes than less. You're going to see the IRS, just torn apart when it comes to that kind of thing. So that's where that's going. Yeah, that's easily predictable. Redpill 3000, what do you think about professional cuddlers? How many ex-Sea Org members do you stay in contact with? Do you like carrot cake? And what's the dumbest crap that you remember from Scientology? All right. Wow, a 4 for 1 this time, Redpill. Don't think I don't notice your creeping numbers going up here on your questions. I think professional cuddlers have something weird going on. I don't like it. Something seems wrong about that level of intimacy at a professional level. But I say that as a passing remark. It's not like I'm super familiar with professional cuddling. What I have seen, it's a little weird. I've never paid for anybody to cuddle with me, by the way. I don't mean I've seen it firsthand, but it just strikes me as odd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably about 15 to 20 ex-Sea Org members I stay in regular touch with. Yeah, about that. I love carrot cake. And the dumbest crap I remember from Scientology. There was, okay, something's developed, a little Polaroid picture in my mind here developing as I'm thinking about this one. There was something very odd in a professional auditor bulletin, I think, from back in the early days. This was it. No, it was from a lecture. It was from Admiration and the Renaissance of Beingness lectures, which were the factors lectures, which were given in early 1953 following the Philadelphia Doctorate Course lectures. Hubbard dropped some stuff that was so fucking weird about golden discs and balls, like that were somehow connected to your body and or attached to your body at the joints or something, and that these golden balls were things that you could perceive and move and manipulate, and you could change, modify the shape of the body, of a person's body, by shifting these specialized, what he called a specialized kind of dimension point, if I have this right, if I remember this right. And it was definitely golden balls or golden discs that you could imagine were sort of, it would be kind of like if you imagined your body as a wireframe, like, you know, those animation things that are a wireframe. It just looks like wires, and they're jointed together with little circles or balls or something, and you can hinge and move them, and this is how you animate. This is basic animation on a computer, if you guys have ever seen this. It's like your body is a wireframe, and these golden discs or these dimension points, as Hubbard called them, or anchor points, are anchoring your body in place, and you could change it by seeing and adjusting these discs. And to this day, I can't think of too many things I heard in Scientology that are absolutely batshit crazier than that. Just outright, straight up delusional. Straight up. There's no basis in anything. Right? Yes, my body has golden balls. That's right. That's right. That's why it's ridiculous. Anyway, there you go. So, you'll cuddle with me for free? Oh, thank you. Okay, so that is what I can say is the dumbest crap I remember from Scientology was the golden balls. Okay. Boy, I really got to go in a second here. Robert Tobias, I know that Scientologists are the most moral people around. Still, I was wondering if you ever witnessed anything unseemly or untoward in the Purif sauna. What are you implying, Robert? What could you possibly be inferring with your question? To be honest with you, I never saw any hanky-panky in the sauna. I never did. So, yeah. Okay, Miskovich asked me, have you ever tried crocodile? No, I have not. OBG Foster, does Benson want a doggy brother? Oh, I have a new foster doggy. Note the foster in my name. Oh, OBG Foster. Yes, of course. No, we can't deal with a second dog. We would really, really love to get Benson a companion, but it would be too much for us. We got our hands full with one dog right now. So we'll no, that's not going to happen right now. Okay. Thank you. No Name in NW. I was thrilled to see your interview with Ken Garrett from Safe Portland. Have you gotten other cities wanting a safe group? Lots of people need the healing. The podcast just posted yesterday, so I have not gotten any feedback yet from anybody wanting to start a group in another city yet. But I am really hopeful that that podcast and future content we will do also pushing that will hopefully gen some interest in that, because we really do need your help, people. In cult recovery out there, and this is a way to do it. I hope you'll check out my podcast that I posted with Ken yesterday. It's really, really good. Okay, Joe DeCeppo, how do you think we can avoid another incident like the Crowdstrike one? Why are so many critical and or public services dependent upon a private company such as Microsoft? How do we prevent that? Well, you know, the time to prevent that has passed. We are past that. That ship has sailed. The infrastructure of our world is run by a handful of companies who have and can exert control, and who have infrastructure that doesn't necessarily work. I will point you to the Y2K problem. And to this day, credit card companies and banking industries that run and are responsible for literally the flow of billions of dollars on a routine basis, on a daily basis, are run on mainframes that are still run on Unix, Linux, not Linux, Unix, and on old, you know, mainframes. It is horrifying if you were to find out the actual state of affairs, the lick and promise, you know, toothpicks and sticky tape that keeps our society going. You'd be shocked. You'd be absolutely appalled if you knew about the New York water system and how old some of that infrastructure is. Our highways, our power grids, the susceptibility of these grids to external attack. I'm telling you, it is amazing that our world it runs as smoothly as it does, considering how sloppily and licking a promise our infrastructure really is. So what can we do about it? We can demand that our politicians and legislators and regulators do something about it. And, you know, who's making these demands? Nobody. Why? Because they're too wrapped up in cults of personality around, you know, people like Donald Trump, you know, or Joe Biden. I mean, what are we doing? You know, this question has more to do with the actual quality of life of our day to day than any number of politicians. To be honest, Joe, it's a great question, and the answer is huge. It's gigantic. It's climate change sized. It's really that bad of a problem, if I'm being honest, from my knowledge of it. So taking the power away from private entities and putting it back in state ownership under our ownership as citizens would be a really good first step on a number of levels. But this is here in the United States, for example. This is a state as well as federal problem, and you know, the number of vested interests and money and on all of that. If you follow the money on this stuff, oh baby. So yeah, it's a big problem. I wish I had a better answer for you, Joe. I really do. It's really at this point just demand your politicians. All right, and folks, I hate doing this. I really wanted to get to the bottom, but I got to go. Jesus, this guy. So sorry, but this has been fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have. I hope you will check out my book. If you haven't read it, do so. If you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, please do so. And if you would like to speak with me one-on-one for some consultation time, you can do that too. Contact me via my website, or email me anytime you want at askchrisshelton@gmail.com. And let's talk. Okay, guys, I will have to wrap it up now. Very engaging this week. I loved all the comments on and off the Q&A box. Thanks for your engagement. Thanks for coming around and watching me blabber on at a mad rate. Whether you agree with my answers or not, I'm always appreciative of your support and your viewership and your input and feedback back to me. I really, really do appreciate it. All right, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.